Welcome. We're figuring life out together. And as such, this is really just a starting point, not the end of the conversation. And my guest today was really clear in telling me afterwards that he wanted, people to come back with other ideas to continue the conversation, not to sit back and throw stones at some of his ideas, but to engage. And that's what this podcast is all about, listening to different people's perspectives. And hopefully they do differ somewhat to your own. So I'd encourage you to get involved in the comments, share what your opinions are currently, your experiences, and to share this with other people. You don't have to endorse everything we say. Share it and ask a question with it. What do you think? What's your perspective? And that's what we hope this will be, a safe place where we can have conversations that matter. Today's guest, Matt's a local guy who's, quite humble in his assessment of himself, I'd say. He shares, from his experience, from his background, from his research on a topic that's quite uncomfortable to face, but a reality that we all go through. Even my kids my young kids starting to see that there is evil in the world. How do we cope? How do we process that reality? And I think understanding what evil is helps us in gaining a much clearer perspective on life, and helps us to be able to do a greater good. Gives us motivation, I guess. So stay with us, and please again share your thoughts with us in the comments, or you can visit our website haventogether.com and send us a personal message. Let's get into the interview now. Well, thank you first of all, Matt, for being on this show. You were pretty enthusiastic about it. Why was that?
Why is that? As I mentioned before, I don't put a lot of stuff on social media, because it's very clickbaity and people come back with, one sort of sentence responses, and you can't. I think long form conversation is sort of the way that you can really articulate your thoughts, and I invite the opportunity to do that, and I like to bounce ideas off how I'm thinking.
All right, good.
So I don't like to, just because I think this doesn't mean it's right, so I like to bounce ideas, just strawman them, see how we're going. I'll say that a lot of ideas I have are not good. I don't necessarily believe in them, but I like to sort of test them out, like a hypothesis.
Yeah. So if you had to say that you're an expert in one area, if I forced you to say, I'm an expert in this area, what would that area be?
I would say that I'm an expert at knowing that I'm not an expert.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good way out of that.
You're welcome. Yeah. That's it. I know that I know, 15th that there is to know in the world. And, there's that, I forget who coined the term, but it's some psychologist where somebody that as you learn more about a topic, you sort of become less confident as you realise you don't know as much.
Right.
Dunning-Kruger, yeah.
So you've dabbled in a lot of topics, would you say?
Dabbled, yes.
Yes, so
yes.
You're done enough to realise you're not an expert in many areas. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Evil. So it's a word I don't like, but the person, Sue, on the last podcast, she brought it up. She mentioned the word evil. So I thought, let's look into that topic a bit more. Matt, do you believe in the existence of evil?
So you haven't seen my notes, which is good. So this is live.
Yeah. For us, it is.
It is. So first, I think I'd like to define what you mean by evil. That can take a lot of forms. That can mean a lot of different things. So let's set a baseline that we can both sort of launch off.
Right. So evil, where I guess when I thought about evil, it's harm with sort of no thought to another person's well-being.
Intentional harm.
Intentional harm malicious harm is probably how I would define it.
Okay, so it's like a moral evil.
Then there might be some sort of gain that somebody's getting, but it's without thought to other people.
Okay, so you're not talking about like a physical evil like death, famine, disease, earthquakes.
I think we could sort of touch on that a little bit.
Okay.
It's a bit out of our control, but I think there is that as well. I mean, when we look at the world, there's the human cause, but there's also outside causes, which people might not even wrestle with because it's too hard.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll base it off.
Do you believe in the existence of either of those or both of them?
Well, if you believe in good, which I think we can agree is a thing, because there is, you can say that's good, there must exist evil. You can't have one without the other. They're mutually necessary. Like in without out, up without down, can't exist.
Right. So you could say the opposite of good is not so good. Like I could say your beard is good. Someone wouldn't say your beard is evil.
That's true. You're that's fine. So obviously, when I say good, we're talking about the ultimate, right? If you've got a scale of good, as you know, you must have the extreme. You must have one end of that scale. Then what's the other end of that scale? So yeah, there's not good as in not all good things are the same. They don't have, if you measure them
Gotcha.
Subjectively or objectively, like you can't say that, like you said, my beard is good versus your hair is good. Now I can say your hair is good and mine isn't because I don't have any hair.
It's not evil. No.
It's not evil though. Yeah, but I could say you spent time, you got dressed, you looked after your children, you made food so you could be well nourished and speak properly and put your goodness into the world, and you came in today. That's a pretty good act.
Yeah.
Like if we were to.
Wow. Yeah.
That is my daughter broadcasting something to me. That's she loves using the Google. She's home today. So yeah, there's a spectrum.
All right. So you would say there's evil.
Yes.
Evil. You don't have a problem using that word.
It's a word. I mean, you can have a problem with any word, but it's a word. It depends on what power it has over you. It doesn't. Just a word. It's just a way to describe. So it's not the word necessarily. It's more what it's describing. Yeah. It's just. It's just the vowels and sounds that you're making with your voice.
How often would you say you encounter evil?
Okay, so again, sorry to go back to this again, but I think it's important, the distinction. So when you say evil, you mean anything not good, or anything that's intending to cause harm to others, intentionally.
Yeah.
Okay, how often do I encounter that? I would say, and again, on the spectrum, and I'm not talking, we've got the worst kinds, but pretty frequently, I would say I've done evil myself. And probably frequently. And when I say that, I mean in like the lowest form, as in I've done something knowing that somebody's not going to that's not the best way to approach it. And that's, we all do that every day. Like, do we sit back and every thought that comes out of our mind and go, is this exactly going to land perfectly? Is this going to be the absolute good for everybody? Or is maybe that might cause some harm to somebody? Yeah. Now, of course, that's not really intentional though, so mind your point there. Intentionally evil, not very often. Not often at all.
Yeah, I would say most people living in this country at least would agree.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have to confront evil too often, but it's more when we think about a global scale of things. I mean, often evil's covered up, so it's hard to pinpoint it. I mean, there's a few conspiracy theories out there, for example. If any of them were true, that would be evil done to us. But, there's hard to get to the bottom of some of the evils in the world, like the war over in Ukraine at the moment. How would you see that? Is that evil?
Glad you raised that. So, and I've always thought, what I'm about to tell you, that I've always thought this, but it's good that you sort of asked me about this question a few days ago. I could read it, and I actually found a sort of phrase that helped me articulate what I was thinking, and that is moral relevancy. So I actually, you say, intentional evil, it's not that often, but I would say it's very, very rare that there are intentionally evil people out there. Even Ukraine and Russia. And what I mean by that is Putin thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's supporting his kind and his people to better his society and better the world globally. He thinks that is for the greater good. We can use that term. So to him, he's doing the right thing. Even Hitler. And again, I'm not going to justify those actions. There's a difference between action and consequence and what you're doing and the consequence of that. But put that to the side. In terms of the intentional evil, as we described it, Hitler thought he was doing the right thing. He thought it was better for the world if we eradicated that race. That's better for the world. Let's do that. And he had a lot of people around him that agreed with that moral relevancy. So, and we are now in a position where what we think is right and wrong and evil is based on our moral relevancy. The people around us, the Judeo-Christian, bedrock that we sit on, is based on what we think is good and what we think is right. So you take that out, who are we to decide, as in people, what is right and what is wrong? How can we sit there and go, well, what you're doing is evil because I think it is, or because somebody told me it is?
Wow. So you're saying that most people don't go that deep with it. They're quick to label things bad, and
they're not. It's a judgment, right? I'm not saying, and again, this is not attack on the action on the person. I think clear distinction that people connect those two, and they are connected, but not understanding, in my opinion, that most of these people are thinking that they're doing the right thing. And there's also the proactive versus sort of reactive evil. You take anybody. Let's look at. I'll pick an example, and we can unpack that. I can unpack it for you if you want to.
All right. So a car crash, maybe.
Yep.
Where a driver. Well, this is a different kind of evil, I guess, but
it is.
Reacts to something, swerves, and hits and kills people in another car. They didn't intend that, but that's an evil outcome, I guess.
That's a physical evil, yeah. So that's that's again. You mentioned that their base was intentional evil. That is unintentional. So they didn't go out there to go and harm somebody, knowing they're vulnerable to a car hitting them. So I would say, that's a physical evil, and we can unpack that one. But that's not an intentional.
But then
evil.
Let's just say that it was on a road that was unsafe. The council decided not to fix the road up. They had made the decision to risk it, to leave that road unsafe, and therefore they have some responsibility for what happened.
Yeah, I totally agree. So again, we could use. Even though some things are masked to say physical evil, I absolutely feel we have a sort of, I'll use the word moral obligation, but obligation that you could almost, not everything, but you could almost pinpoint a lot of stuff that happens in our lives, even disease, famine, to things that humans have done, things that we have done. And it could have started as a good idea or a good thought that somehow has ended up being bad.
Yep, the introduction of cane toads.
A good example, a good example, analogy of that, exactly that. So we live in a world that we're the product of everything that's come before us, and we can't judge them for that because they thought they were doing the right thing. I would argue that the vast majority thought they were doing the right thing.
Yeah, so would you say then that ignorance can lead to evil unintentionally?
Yeah.
So it's on us really to educate ourselves as well as we can.
Yes. But it's easy for us to say when we've got,
all these,
roof over our head, food in our bellies. Somebody that doesn't have that, they're not going to be thinking of these sort of...
Survival is number one priority.
Exactly, yeah. So is it, if they don't know what they're doing and they act that we think they do something that they think is evil, but they can't put food on the table, is that evil?
I'd be interested to talk about blame.
Yep.
Because when something happens to you that's wrong, whether it's intentional or not, there's a natural feeling that we need to blame somebody or something.
Yeah.
And often people will blame a person, whether it's their fault or not. They'll blame a greater power. People in the highest degree might blame God. Where do you think that comes from, the need to blame somebody for evil?
Okay, well, first, I just want to preface that, you know, I've obviously encountered things that in my life that have been very tragic. I mean, even recently, my niece passed away, 13 years old. Like, what the? You know, just devastated the family. My sister and brother-in-law and my other two nieces, I don't know how, you know, just absolute champions working through it. And my firstborn, you know, he died at birth. That was terrible. There's an opportunity to blame something else there, and I'm not going to say that I didn't have those thoughts and didn't wrestle with those. Absolutely. There's a few things there. I'll just think for a second.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a few reasons why somebody would do that. I think maybe one of the most common is to defer responsibility. Again, that's not saying that everything that happens to people is their fault, but a lot of the time, if they actually look back at their life and the steps they've taken, the decisions they've made, not always in their control, but a lot of the time it is, and it's gone to that point, it's like, well, if I actually didn't do that, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do this, and I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a way to sort of defer responsibility from your own actions. Not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying that's my take on why people want to blame others for what's happened to them.
But some of those tragedies you've mentioned, there's nothing you could have done in those situations.
Nothing.
So then there's just wow, what do I do with this? Did you ever blame God?
Yes. It was frivolous though. Yeah. And I learned that quickly. I mean, what is blaming God? How does that help me? Doesn't really help me. It doesn't. So, and
do you think God has some responsibility though? Do you think He has control over?
That's a great question. Yes, He does have control. He does have responsibility. Yep.
It's a pretty tough one to figure out. I mean, He has some responsibility. He could have done something. He doesn't. You know, it's.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's true, but that is the necessity for being. Without things that could happen either way, we don't exist. I'll tease it out for you. I love this saying, I've used it many times.
Yeah.
God is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. What does He lack?
Finiteness?
Sorry?
Nothing?
Incorrect.
Finiteness?
Yes. Sorry, is that what you said initially?
That was my original answer.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought
I didn't
it was...
want to give a correct answer too soon.
Limitations. He lacks limitation. Without it. So if you could be anywhere, do anything you want, that's not a story. There's no life in that. There's no existence. The very nature of being is choice, is consequence, is action, reaction. That is being. So with that comes tragedy. There's nothing we can do to avoid that. So you go, well, let's have everything utopia. I can be everything, do everything I want. That's not an existence. Yeah. So we're looking through a lens of, well, I want my cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And that's tough to wrestle with and accept, though.
Tough.
So
it's all good in theory until
tragedy strikes, and I've been there, so I can sort of. I'm not just saying, if you had that tragedy, you should be able to deal with it. I've been there, and it was tough.
Yeah.
It was really tough. I still have moments of just bursting out into tears, just missing moments and things that I didn't have. And I'm not the only one. And other people have suffered even way more greatly than I have. But I think that the reason is still the same. Like, that's the nature of being. And what other alternative is there?
So you've got beyond blaming.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get to now? Evil things happen.
Yep.
Sometimes they happen to us. Sometimes it's tragic. How do we live a life that's positive, not held back by fear, not with regret, not with all this baggage in a world where there's, the potential for bad things?
Good question. Well, this might be controversial what I'm about to say, but I thought about it a bit, and I've always thought, this is not new things that I'm thinking, by the way. I've always sort of thought these, but it helped me to do a bit of research and sort of articulate how I wanted to say it. I think, obviously I'm saying it, but soften it with I think, that saying to somebody that doesn't have a belief in a higher power that it's in God's plan, I think that's not a good argument.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think it's a bad argument. I'll give you an analogy. So let's say you're out in a field. You and I are out in a field. Person A and person B are out in the field.
All right, I'm a bit scared.
and person A says to B, turn around, look behind you, wide open field, nobody here, turn around, you can see there's nothing behind you, now face me. Now you fall backwards and your friend that you've never met or seen or heard before will catch you. They'll go, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Where to a believer, you could say, all right, let's call him Jesus. Mm-hmm. You're in a field, the same field, and the believer and say, now I won't say fall back, I mean metaphorically, fall down, and Jesus will catch you. Now, they might not have seen him physically, but there's other senses we can use. There's the sort of that conscious sense, there's possibly hearing, there's signs. They are more likely to accept that premise, where a person that doesn't believe, they go, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? That doesn't mean anything to them. So circling back in response to your question about what can we do, one, I don't think it's healthy to say, oh, there's a plan for it, it's okay, we'll just let it be. I think that does abdicate responsibility somewhat, and it doesn't help you, it doesn't help anybody. We are in control of our own destiny. Some things happen that are out of our control, but why shouldn't we do what we can to bring the best in the world that we can, knowing that these things are going to happen regardless? To put ourselves in the best place, so that gives us purpose, that gives us meaning. Otherwise, when these things, and it's not about if, it's when these things come and hit us, we're just flying in the wind with no direction. So you got to aim at something, and I say aim up is the best way. When I mean by aim up, if we use the good evil sort of term, let's say evil's down, up is good. Aim for the good, whatever that is. That's whatever that means. It can mean a lot of things, and it's another thing we can unpack in a lot of time. But
there's good and evil.
Aim up.
Let's aim for the good. Let's do what we can, which usually is a fair bit, to bring about more good in the world. Aim at something. A lot of people, like research scientists and doctors and things, people in the health field are doing that every day. Would you agree?
I would. No, I do. It's. I don't want to. I'm supportive of not using a simplistic view of somebody that heals somebody physically is the best kind of good. I'm not saying you're saying that, but just so it doesn't have to be working in a health field to be good. But yes, of course, those people are, and I couldn't do what they do. Caring for people like that and seeing some horrible things and having to work through that. But there's many different avenues you can take that are bringing good into the world and are essentially aiming up. And that brings you up. It brings other people around you up.
It's not so much the role; it's more the way you work that out.
That's right. Yeah.
Like a teacher. I'm from a teaching background. A teacher can do great good, or in the same way they could do great harm. Exactly.
It could be, working at McDonald's. A great job, by the way. Great job. My cousin's there. It's great for young and old. But example, it could be in McDonald's, but you could be the best person in that McDonald's shop. You do really good customer service. You leave somebody, when you serve them, they walk away smiling on their face. Boom, you just brought good into the world. It can be anywhere. Whatever you're doing, be the best at it. Aim up.
It's pretty encouraging. Matt.
That's one thing. There's heaps of things you can do.
So everybody has the potential. Whether you're single, whether you've got kids, whether you're working, whether you're just at home.
100%.
People have options.
Yep.
To do something good.
Yep.
Interesting. I was going to ask you a question, though. Maybe it's...
No, yeah.
Throw another spanner in the works.
I love spanners and works. They're both great. By the way, what do I do with my hands? Am I sitting correctly? Do I need to...
Well, believe it or not, I was I listened to a podcast about hands yesterday.
Oh, this is perfect.
Because hands are the way people trust you. And they argued that it was from, old times when people carried weapons. If people concealed their hands, they weren't to be trusted. So don't put your hands behind your back, don't put them in your pockets. Keep your hands visible.
Okay, let's go. I can do that.
And in the first 7 seconds, people will form a more trusting relationship
All right,
with you.
let's count it. 1, 2. You're feeling more trusting now?
I am. Except they're a bit scary.
They're visible. That's what you wanted.
Maybe more a friendly gesture.
Oh.
Yep.
There we go. How's that one? 7 seconds.
You're proving the point.
7 seconds is up. Let's continue. My hands will be visible at all times.
Visible and open, I reckon.
Yep.
And another thing I heard is this is a power stance. When the hands are facing down, the palms are down. This is more a vulnerable position when your hands are up, and to present people looking for warmth, but also looking for some sort of competence.
I know how to do that.
And so you gotta, perfect. You gotta do that.
Nailed it. All right, let's continue. I'm feeling good right now.
And that
It's trying to be comfortable.
one up, one down is the way to do it. Except not to look awkward.
Oh.
A good presenter will hold something in their hands so that it's not as awkward.
Okay, I'll hold my phone. Up, down.
Just more of a natural position.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I don't want to look at the phone. Let's put it down.
You don't want to make it look obvious.
Okay. Well, depends. Relatively, this could be up and down somewhere in the world. So there we go.
These are subliminal things. So if you bring it out into the open, people
There we go.
start to.
How about this one?
Yeah.
No.
That's good.
I digress. Sorry.
Yo, if people are still listening, well done. We've certainly done our best to.
They should probably look at this because they can see what's going on instead of just talking about hands. It
Mhm.
makes sense that you see it.
So, one more question, Matt. If if we are doing our best in the presence of evil in the world, we're doing our best to bring the good we can. We could be though quite discouraged. Somebody could face situations in their life from a young age where they have evil done to them and they don't experience enough good to sort of understand who you get to the place where they have the ability to do good to others. And that's a tragic sort of evil where it's
A product of their environment.
Mm. The question there would be, there are things that happen that just seem to keep happening. Kids are dying from preventable diseases, or just natural disasters happen, or things are happening.
Mm.
And it's well and good to say, well, we can do our best to prevent it, but things keep happening. That's a pretty reasonable excuse to say there can't be a good God.
Mm.
If there's a God, he can't be good because he's letting these things continue to happen. How do you come to terms with that?
Well, first, it is a good reason. Entirely justifiable. To an innocent child, there's these bugs in Africa that eat children's eyes out, just horrific. There was a question: how do you justify it? How do you respond to that? How do you come to terms?
How can you believe in a good God?
Yep.
If this is the case.
There's a couple of ways to answer that. The one I sort of touched on before, and I won't go into it again, is the
analogy,
the existential, crisis of our existence.
Mm.
That is an existential problem. To exist, these things are going to happen. There's nothing we can do to avoid them. But then, let's just move that to the side, because that doesn't justify really, why that happens to innocent children. Because it's easier to say somebody that's lived a life and had done things, not made great choices all the time, like sort of any normal human being, and then things happen and go, well, you know, they've lived a good life, they've not been the perfect being, and well, that's what happens. That's life. But to a child that's, like you said, innocent, has no opportunity to have learned anything or done anything, and they've had to experience, you know, horrific. I'll use another analogy, and because I try to avoid, of course, I can easily say, and I would say, there's often a purpose for stuff like that. It's not easy to see, and I'll use an example with, say, my son. So, two examples actually. One I use frequently. One I just sort of came up with recently. Mm-hmm. So the one I used was about things happening to people and to children. It's for you to use your example. So my son, I love my son. You know, adore him. I want to do anything to protect him. But for him to learn to walk, he's going to trip and stumble and fall. He's going to hurt himself. Mm-hmm. What can I do? Do I put him in cotton wool? Do I wrap him up into a nice bubble? Do I not take him outside? Is that living? You know, and I stop him from being the person that I love, the kid that I love. You know, seeing his character, seeing, you know, what he likes and dislikes. If I just wrap him up and not let him do anything, and yeah, sure, he'll be safe, but what kind of existence is that? You know, have you heard of the Edible Mother, sort of it's Egyptian mythology? Have you heard of that before? It's about the mother that protects her child so much that she ends up sort of eating them to protect them. It was like, well, I can't leave you in the world because you're that you'll die, so she consumes them with her love. Essentially, she's trying to be morally good. So that's sort of one thing around. Well, if people are going to exist in this world, it's the nature of existence. It could be an earthquake. You know, do we blame God on an earthquake that kills hundreds of people? Yes. No. I don't know. Can we? So that's part of it. The other part of it is, and I like to avoid this where I can for people that might not believe in it in a sort of higher power, is the finite nature of the world we're in is only a perspective that we can see. What we can see, feel, touch, experience is through our lens. You know, there's already talk about multiple dimensions, you know, 3-dimensional. We talk about multiple dimensions. So all I'm trying to say, you think about the 2D man in 2D world, and all he sees is flat. That's all he knows. Yeah. You introduce, you know, 3D, and it just blows his mind. He had no perception of that. So what about if we're only seeing in the 3D and 4D, 5D? We are only looking at the world through our specific capability, what we can see. There's things that we know we're missing, but there could be things on a more deeper spiritual level that we're missing that we don't are in tune with, that not explaining these things, but might give reason to them. Yeah. For example, as an example, if let's say an earthquake comes and you know, takes out a family, a young child, terrible tragedy. Who's to say their life ends there? From our perspective. Yeah. You know, and again, I'll use the second analogy with my son is sometimes when I discipline him, he's done something and he's done the wrong thing. He's hurt his sister, or he's done something naughty, he's causing harm, and then he has to be disciplined. Let's say it's time out in his room. Now at that point he thinks I'm evil. He thinks, oh, you've cast the absolute evil on me. You're the worst for making me feel like this and doing this to me. But I'm doing it to, one, teach him invaluable life lessons and to actually grow him as a person. Now, I'm not saying that excuses a death. How can that person grow if they're no longer with us? But if we look at if we extrapolate that, that's a simple analogy. Extrapolate that to what about if it's on a grander scale? If there's I don't want to use the word plan, but there is something else happening that we can't see with our 3-dimensional vision, that not maybe necessarily justified, but gives reason to why something might be happening. The only certainty in this life is uncertainty. You know, the very nature of being is that things are, it's not if, it's a when, and they're going to come. You know, maybe that, I think of my firstborn Levi that died, one of the things that actually came to me that helped me with this a lot was I felt like he was going to have some challenges you know, from a mental health perspective. My wife's family has a history of mental health on the male side. They've all, you know, just committed suicide. They've mental institutions there. It just runs in the family from the male side, and I don't know why. I just had that feeling that and it was going to be something that I couldn't bear. I'm not strong enough. I'm not a strong person. You know. And also he didn't have to suffer.
So you felt like some sort of comfort came. Would you say that thought might have come from God?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, I mean, there's heaps of things we can't explain. The conscience, what is that? Where does that come from?
Yeah.
You know, how do you explain? And everybody has it. Everybody has that thing. If they do something that's not right, morally right, they know.
Yeah.
It'll eat away at them. They'll know. So where does that come from? What is that? It's got to be something. It's not something we can touch or feel or taste, but it's there. We all know it exists.
Yeah.
That's another example of there's something else there that can't be explained. And just because you can't explain it doesn't mean it's wrong.
All right. You've done a pretty good job, I think, of explaining how it would be possible for a good God to exist with the world we live in. Could you give a good reason, though, for the existence of God? A slightly different. You've explained why it's plausible.
Yep.
Is there any reasons you have why it's not just plausible, it is something more for you?
Well, the personal experience, and I can say personal experience, but that doesn't. I don't think that. It might mean something to some people, but
if I know you, yeah, it would mean something.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that the best way to know something, through personal experience?
No.
Do you think?
I think God can speak to people in many different ways, and He has. I mean, there's so many examples of people experiencing different things, physically and sort of spiritual, mentally, if you will. Ask the question again. So I want to get this right. It's an important one.
Okay, good. So, what's a good reason for believing in God? Not just, I guess the agnostic view where it might be possible.
Okay, reason for believing. Okay, there's one reason I gave to an atheist boss of mine. We had great conversations, and I said, well, you can either believe or not believe, and if you do believe, and it's true, nailed it.
Yeah.
If you do believe and it's not true, not so bad. Terrible reason, by the way. But I have used it. It was like, well, it's better to be on that side than the other side. What's the other side? Nihilism? What is that? What kind of existence is that? Where nothing matters? Who cares? What's the point? That is horrifying to think of that as an existence. So, I mean, we just got to look at if you look at the chance of us being on this speck, this blue speck, and us being a dot on that speck, and the infinitesimal sort of universe out there, the absolute bonkers chance that occurred is it's ridiculous. And yeah, you could put that down to science, but so many things have a purpose, or everything has a purpose behind it. Everything has a point. It's like it's intelligently designed. There's a creator. There's something behind this. I mean, you can see it. People feel this. This is not just me. This is not just a personal thing. You sort of know this. Conscience. What is that? What is this thing that I can't put a finger on? So, in the invariable face of tragedy, the aiming to a transcendent God, to something that is above us, it brings a core peace to living, to reason, to meaning, and without that, it's, well, what are you doing? Well, why?
So it's a satisfying answer to the big why question.
It is a great. I haven't encountered atheists and non-believers alike that has come up with from my limited exposure. I'd love to hear, and I like to Google this, but I haven't seen a a comprehensive sort of reason behind or justification for living outside of that actually justifies how and why. Nothing sort of lines up. But when it comes to that, and we use the Bible as sort of the written form of that, it can all be lined up. It all actually makes sense. And that's why I love sort of testing things, because God He created science, so He absolutely can use science and reason and logic to justify existence. I don't think we need to go, well, it's in just believe in a higher power. I think we absolutely have in our capacity the ability to use logic, use reason, use the power of our brain to sort of understand the why and understand how and the ultimate purpose we have here. I could go on, but this is
fascinating.
Short time frame.
And I can see why you don't post any of this on social media.
It takes time to explain. Yeah, and this is this is short form still. Long form is like hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Maybe we can talk about it one day.
Maybe in future. Will you come on again?
If you'd have me, I'll know what to do with my hands next time.
That's important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing I've learned from this. I don't know about you, but for me, it's the hands. That's really helped me.
I'll be looking from now on to see what you do with them. Yeah. All right, and I know you're a movie buff, Matt, so I just thought I'd end on this one.
Yep.
If it's okay, is there a good movie that you think deals with the topic of evil, good and evil? There's many that do.
Yeah, I had a look for this, and I realised short answer is no and yes. No, because good and evil again is not that. It's not as straightforward as it sounds.
Yeah.
And we've talked just briefly about some of the reasons that there might not be.
The straightforward way of dealing with it makes a great movie, but
exactly. So, yeah. but that's done in movies. So that's the typical archetypes. Good versus evil has been an archetype, and it will continue to be an archetype. And it's compelling because that sort of reflects our nature. There's a few good movies. Look, A Clockwork Orange. And it's a bit of an R rating, but if that's like ultimate evil, then the turnaround. Anything on the Auschwitz camps, the Nazi Germany, anything on there, because that again that's sort of what using that moral relevancy, that's sort of something we've put over here as that's ultimate evil. The Lion King, if you want to get Disney, like a lot of Disney classics are really good at that good versus evil. I mean Pinocchio. So Pinocchio, they actually don't even hide it. Good is the fairy from the sky, the transcendent power. Be the best version of yourself. Love others.
Yeah.
Bad is you basically look and feel like you're ugly inside and out. He becomes a donkey. Like it doesn't even hide the fact.
Yeah.
That's good. That's evil. You go towards the pleasures of your flesh.
Yeah.
You're going to look and feel like this. So that's a good one. What I found interesting though was as I was looking through movies and I was reflecting on ones I've seen, and I realised that the trend. It's like older movies had this sort of two-dimensional bad versus good. It was very not saying it was more like he's bad because he's just evil. Like, there was no real justification, no reason. But as audiences have become more nuanced and we're sort of, I guess, a bit more enlightened, whatever you want to call it, these characters have become less just two-dimensional evil.
Yes.
Thanos is a good example, right? Where he thinks we see him as the bad guy, but he actually thinks he's doing the right thing. He sits in the green pasture and he's content with himself, and he's totally. You've seen the movie Endgame, and he's spoiler alert. He's totally fine with what he's done. He's like, I can relax now. He does the pose. Like he's like, I'm good. I'm totally at peace, and he's just slaughtered half the universe because he believes that it's the right thing to do. We do run into the risk though of giving moral reasons to abhorrent evil. How I can. So to end the point, and I promise this is my last point. That's why I don't believe we can come up with what's good and evil ourselves.
Right.
That's because, again, moral relevancy to you or to culture over there. Some cultures, they think cannibalism is totally fine. That's what we can do. We can do that. We think that's abhorrent. So who are we to say that's wrong? We think it's wrong, but that's where I point to. We need to have a transcendent value sort of base. We can't and I haven't seen the good argument to, not a good argument, I haven't seen reason to platform this answer of, if you everything we know now is based on Judeo-Christian, our law system, our legal system. You take that out, who's coming up with what's right and what's wrong? You know, just because one person or one group of people even say this is good for today, that might be bad for tomorrow. That base, that, you know, a transcendent value, the logos, that sets what is right and what is wrong. 10 Commandments, great example.
Yeah.
Without that, what's right and what's wrong?
And I guess that works great in a society that believes in God. When a society doesn't believe in God and they have problems with some of those things, it suddenly becomes a man-made system.
Exactly.
And it all falls apart.
Yep. I mean, Nietzsche, the philosopher, what he said when he said God is dead, right? He said he's the one that said that.
Yeah.
And there was a proclamation, God is dead. But that was a warning. That wasn't it was actually, you cut the slats out from this value that is above us all. Mm-hmm. You know, what is right, what is wrong, we're doomed.
Yep.
And that was a sort of, you know, negative note.
It's all right. That's sort of why I don't usually have strong values either way. I mean, I have some cool ones, you know, everyone does, but on a lot of things I'm pretty open.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the monarchy, you know, Australia has the monarchy as a symbol. I think, you know, that is good in that fact that there's a sort of a level above, you know, there's no ultimate power here in Australia. No one that controls everything. We have sort of this symbolic higher power, which I guess stops, you know, the tyrants from coming in and, you know, ruling a place. No, not that I'm saying I'm pro-monarch or whatever, but
as an example,
having
a symbol,
having God as, you know, this is the higher power is a good thing for society.
Absolutely, and a reason for the belief. We can loop that back to that as another answer.
Because there's good and evil in everyone, even if it was us ourselves going there with good intentions to rule the world. We've got ignorances. We've got
positive bias.
Yeah, and so we're going to do evil, even if we do our very, very best to make this world a better place.
Can we end on a different note?
Yeah.
Sorry, like
Please.
30-second point. I think it's important to note the vast majority of goodness that is in the world. Like the evil stands out to us because it's sort of so anti sort of our natural instincts. We are overwhelmingly good as a society, as a people. Overwhelmingly, you think of the millions of people that exist. There's only, you know, a small handful that are doing, you know, acts that you would say would be evil. Ultimately evil, intentionally evil. Let's put it that way. So, you know, we're overwhelmingly make good choices in our lives, which is amazing, right? It's just crazy. No other species on the comes get close.
I'm glad you ended on that note. It's fascinating, though, that we are fascinated with evil. I mean, look at the news. 90% evil.
Fear sells.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks, Matt. We'll end there. And have you back another time. If somebody watching says, bring him back on, hey? So,
oh, gee. What happens if I say that? I'll just put a comment. I'll just anonymously log in and go, yeah, bring him back. This guy's legit.
That'll work.
Maybe just get a new face.
Yep.
Yeah.
Log into another account and do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I'd like to thank Matt for being brave enough to share so honestly. And I'd encourage you, let him know whether you'd like him to come back. He's definitely got some other topics he told me he's keen to talk about as well. Otherwise, I'd love to hear what you have to think, what your experiences are. And perhaps we could start with a question. When have you experienced evil? What did you do? Did you try and blame somebody? And how did you come to terms with that in your life? Did you see any good come out of that bad thing? I'm just going to interject here and share some of my thoughts. I've asked you to share yours, so I think it's only fair that I share a few of mine. so far. It's taken a while to process, I think, in such a big topic. There's so much that we could say, and probably these are just my initial thoughts. They could change, but first of all, I would say that I don't like the sound of the word evil. I mean, yeah, you just initially jump to the horrific, but I don't think evil is necessarily always at that level. I think evil, like Matt said, we don't see a lot of in our day to day. But thinking about this more, I think that's not because it's not present. I actually think all of us, most of us at least, like Matt said, want good, work for the good of society, good of others. But that's not to say that there isn't this pull towards what isn't good. And we know that's not right. Somewhere inside us, we know that's not right. So we try to cover it up. And so that's why I think we don't see the presence of evil so much, perhaps. That evil exists, but we try and cover it up. It might be just our thoughts. It might be what's, we keep behind closed doors. It might be our words try to explain. But I think evil is there. And what I think is at the core of this evil that I see within myself, and I think is within each of us, and that is we're seeking what we want, the best for ourselves, in itself not a bad thing, but we're seeking that as our highest goal, as our highest priority. We're putting ourselves at the pinnacle of everything. And what happens then is we put a bunch of people together. We're relational beings. If we're living in communities, and if every single person puts themselves as the number one goal, it doesn't work, because everyone has different ideas, wants different things. We put ourselves first, things start to go wrong. For example, we might take something that isn't ours because we want it. We might take a car park, which we might have the right to, but it stops an elderly woman from taking it, and therefore she's got to walk a lot further to get to where she's got to go. We might speed on the roads because we need to get to where we want, or we need to get to on time, but forget that could be putting others at risk. These are just simple, low-level things. You could probably think of other examples, but we can easily excuse this within ourselves. Somehow we think we're able to do things better. We can cover this up. Again, I'm hesitant to call it evil, but I think that if certain conditions are right, it does start to look more evil. For example, I think power, the greater the power, the responsibility, influence we have, it just multiplies how evil selfish motives can be, like the pursuit of wealth above the good of the people you're serving. If you are in a position of controlling a lot of wealth, you can think of examples like that, or feeling, a great sense of responsibility in leading an organization, but we can excuse certain activities because of the stress of the job, but it harms other people. It's really sad that I heard this week that somebody shared the time when a leader sort of used their position to verbally, with their words, mislead this person. A subtle form of abuse where they were looked up to, and they gave an answer which sounded good, but it wasn't what was helpful for this person. So I think those are my initial thoughts on this topic. Again, be interested to hear your reflections, because I think only with a combined sort of discussion can we sort of start to get to, see the contrasts and the different shades of this topic. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope you can join us next time. If you're a first-time listener, especially a big welcome to you. Feel free to have a look at some of the other topics that might interest you by subscribing to our YouTube channel, or following us on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. But until next time, my name's Tom, and this is the Figuring Life Out Together podcast.